Prosecutors are given great power, endless resources to perform their mission of pursuing justice. But that's not what occurred here. What they will bring you is a case that is riddled with reasonable doubt, that is founded on an incompetent and incomplete investigation and the exercise of poor judgment at every turn. The state cannot prove beyond a reasonable doubt the allegations that they have made. And there is a reason for that. You recall Ms. Bradley, some of you may recall, during jury selection, going to great lengths to let you know that she does not have to prove motive. And she's right about that. The law doesn't require her to prove motive. But you know what does require motive? A young man to wake up one day and decide that he's going to kill two of his best friends. Best friends that he grew up with, best friends that he hangs out with, best friends who he lives with, best friends whose careers he was trying to launch alongside his own. They have no reason for why he would do this, because there is no reason. And if there's no reason, it doesn't make sense. And if after 4 years of investigation, the state comes and says, hey, he killed two of his friends, his best friends, and you're wondering why, and their answer is, oh, I don't know. That's the first indication that they're just guessing and don't know what they're talking. And that, ladies and gentlemen, by itself is reasonable doubt. Why he would commit such a heinous crime against his own two best friends for no reason. What happened here is that the lead detective, Detective Melly, saw a video of Mr. Demons getting into a car 40 plus minutes before bodies were found in that car. And then he discovered that Mr. Demons was a rising star. And from that point on, he decided he's the only person that could have committed this crime. Because if you're involved in prosecuting a star, you become a star. This was his big break. And he had tunnel vision, and he zeroed in on this person, this young man, as the only possible perpetrator of that crime, to the exclusion of all other leads and evidence. There's a difference between cases that are investigated and cases that are fabricated. When a case is investigated, the state uses all its resources, its investigators, its experts, and all its energy to identify leads and run them to ground. When a case is fabricated, first a target is chosen, and then the state uses all its resources, its investigators, its experts, and its energy to run that target into the ground. That's what occurred here, and there's a reason why I say that. There are a number of leads that you will discover that were identified by the officers but were either completely ignored or given short shrift. I'm going to let you know, run through a few of them by way of example. Start with the most obvious. Cortland Henry. Now, Ms. Bradley started her opening statement by describing some of the lies that he told, as though to impute them to Mr. Demons. Those were not Mr. Demons' lies, those were his lies. Cortland Henry shows up at Memorial Hospital, Miramar. You don't see him sitting there, but where you will see him sitting is in the driver's seat of a car with 2 dead bodies, a car riddled with bullets. And when he shows up with a change of clothing, change of shirt, gunpowder residue on his hands, evidencing that he had discharged a firearm. And he lies. He lies about where the incident occurred. He lies about how it occurred. And he lies about not having a phone. I think it was Miss Bradley herself who said, everybody has a phone in his pocket. Not Cortland Henry. There were 3 phones in that car. There were 3 people in that car. So they take him at his word, despite suspicious circumstances, and they let him go on his way. They soon discover that he's lying about the location of this incident, and they went back to him, and they labeled him a victim. And they said, we know you're scared. Tell us what happened. He lies to them again. They let him go. And they know where he went. They know the location that he went. They know the house that he went to right after. And any investigator worth his salt would have thought to maybe execute a search warrant on that location to see if you find any bloody clothes, any DNA, any blood, a weapon maybe. You guys are probably familiar with the series First 48. That's founded on the proposition that if you botch an investigation within the first 48 hours, you've pretty much botched it for good. It's 48 months plus later. They still haven't served a search warrant on that location. Why? Moretti already had his man. What's the point of an investigation? To find out what happened. He's using all his resources to try and prove what he has already concluded did happen. So, after Cortland Henry, lead number 2, a gentleman named Montrell Roll, and his sister, Nia Hewitt. Who were they? Well, another police department came into possession of jail calls between those two that occurred within 3 days after the murders, and discussed what they describe as intimate details of the murders. Intimate details means details that are not in the public domain. So 3 days after, these 2 people are discussing the details of a murder. They go out and interview Miss Hewitt. They don't interview Mr. Roll. And they ask her, well, how did you know all these intimate details? Oh, I heard it, something to the effect of I had word on the street. Doesn't say when she heard it. Doesn't say who she heard it from. Case closed. They move on. That's lead number 2. That was ignored. Then there's Robert Colbert. Who is he? He is a gentleman that owns a social media account by the name of Backwards. This social media account, almost immediately, within days after these murders, posts this message: LOL, we killed 2 of your niggas. Oh, really? Took him 7 months to go and talk to Mr. Colbert, the owner of this account, that posts what amounts to an unequivocal confession to involvement in that murder, in those murders. 7 months. Why? Moretti already had his guy. And when they go and talk to Mr. Colburn, what does he say? He said, oh, I created that account and I sold it for $20 to somebody else. Who'd you sell it to? Oh, I can't remember. Were you at the murder scene? No. Did you do it? No. Case closed. That's it. No more investigation. It would occur to a reasonable person, let alone a seasoned investigator acting in good faith. Why would somebody buy an Instagram account when you can create one for free on your own? If not to hide your identity. And if somebody goes to the trouble of buying an Instagram account to hide their identity and then confesses to a murder that you're investigating, maybe you ought to go and figure out who that person is and talk to them. And maybe there is no such person. Maybe it was not sold. Why would somebody create an Instagram account and sell it for $20? And if he's in the business of doing that, that's of interest. And how would anybody know to go to him to buy an Instagram account? These are all unanswered questions. No investigation. Case closed. Let's move on. David Hedgepath. Who is he, you might wonder? He had a Twitter account called Crucial Almighty. He posts a confession to this murder. Something to the effect of, we coming at that Jeep. Can't remember the quote. You're going to hear about it. And essentially it was a confession to involvement in the murders. It took them 1.5 years to go and talk to him. They knew about it 1.5 years earlier. It took them 1.5 years to go and talk to him. Why do you do that unless you've already concluded that you know who committed the crime, you've already determined who your defendant will be? And when they go to this young man and ask him, well, actually before, this is 1.5 years before, they said, oh, we've determined that he was just trying to start an internet beef to advance his career. Who told him that? Without talking to a soul. So it took him 1.5 years to go down there and track him down. And when they do go and track him down, they say, hey, did you commit the murder? No. Were you in the area? No. Where were you? Well, I could have been at work. At work where? Any one of 3 places. Okay, could you give me your work schedule? As though that would prove anything. He says, well, I can get it now. Oh, no, don't worry about it. Just email it to me. Really? And he doesn't even do that. There is no report that he even follows up and sends them an email of this mysterious work schedule proving that he wasn't at the location. They conclude, oh, he's not there, wasn't him, case closed. Is that how we do this now? That's not all. There are several other people who are potential suspects who were not tracked down. You are going to hear about them during the course of this trial. But beyond that, 3 years after arresting this young man and sticking him in a cell, the state looks at its case and says, oh man, this looks a little incompetent. Miramar police seems to have botched this investigation, and they call the Broward Sheriff's Office and ask them to come and look at the investigation upon which this entire prosecution rests. And he looks at it, and he says he instantly knew he had to start from scratch. I think his words were, it was the worst thing I had seen in my life. This is the Broward Sheriff's Office evaluating the work product of the Miramar Police Department. And we have problems with the Broward Sheriff's Office redo as well, but you're going to hear about that during the course of this trial. Ladies and gentlemen, the murder of anybody and the murder of these 2 young men was a tragedy. You're not here to solve a crime. That's their job, and they have botched it. Jurors often get confused as to their mission. You can't do a job unless you know what that job is. Every civil society needs to have a prosecutorial arm prosecuting crimes and offenses. That's a noble pursuit. There's nothing wrong with that. And every country does it. In some countries, the prosecutor decides who the person is, they send a cop to go arrest them, they throw him in jail, that's the end of it. We don't do that in this country. What we do is we ask, are you sure about what you're talking about? That's the purpose of this proceeding. You're not here to judge Mr. Demons. You're here to judge the sufficiency of the state's case. That is your assignment. You're not here for a show to see who you like more. There are 2 grades, beyond a reasonable doubt and not guilty. A+, everything else is an F. There's no A's, there's no A minuses.
Same.
You are akin to an FDA lab. Imagine a company saying, we're going to put on the market fat-free milk. And the lab, their mission is to determine whether or not there is fat in the milk. And what do they look for? They don't look for milk. They look for fat. The state is telling you they have a state that is free of reasonable doubt. You're not here looking for proof. You're here looking for doubt. And if you're off looking for the wrong thing, you're going to miss what you are here to look for. They have no motive. Their entire case is hinged upon the technology of a phone they claim to have been in Mr. DeMons' possession. What they fail to tell you is that they have come across evidence that Mr. DeMons got out of that car before this incident. They ignore that because it's not consistent with their feelings. What they fail to tell you is that phone comes back to the name of somebody other than Jamal Demons. What they forgot to tell you is that their own witness will tell you that yes, that phone and Mr. Williams' phone and a number of other phones were all in the same account, and all of the people in the house used to use them interchangeably. But they're assigning it to him because that is consistent with their theory. They don't follow leads. They have no motive. Investigation was botched. The investigation, as a matter of fact, is still going on as we speak, up to a couple months ago. Yet they're here telling you they have proof beyond a reasonable doubt, and what you're still investigating for. The job of the state is to prove it beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt. And if you're a reasonable person and you have doubt, that's reasonable doubt. There's a song called Things That Make You Go, If you say that's reasonable doubt. You do not. Ms. Bradley is charming. She's good at her job in some respects. But this is not a popularity contest. We don't give, hey, good effort. We don't give participation awards. This man's life is hanging in the balance. And if there is a scintilla of reasonable doubt, you must have the courage to speak up and say so. You're not here to judge him. You're here to judge the sufficiency of their case. They have a big task in front of them. We should probably get to it.
Mr. Howard, thank you. Counsel, you ready to proceed? Want to call your first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The state calls Officer Jessica Amenger.
Yes, good morning. You are Ms. Jessica Amenger. Welcome. Come on through. This is our witness stand. What I'd like you to do is remain standing for a bit. You put your things down. Thank you. Just raise your right hand as best you can.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you should give in this case should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Please state your full legal name for the record.
Full legal name is Jessica Amenger. Can you spell it as well?
Yes, first and last, please.
First is going to be Jessica, last name Amengor.
Thank you.
Please have a seat. Ms. Amenger, that microphone doesn't move back or forward. It will only adjust up or down.
Okay.
All right? Are you ready to proceed?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Counsel, you may.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you introduce yourself to the jury and tell them where you're currently employed?
Good morning. My name is Officer Jessica Amenger. I work for Miramar PD in Broward County, state of Florida.
Okay. And how long have you been employed by the Miramar Police Department?
A total of 11 years. 5 years I was a community service aide, which is a non-sole position, and then 6 years now as a sworn law enforcement officer.
And what were some of your duties as a service aide, a non-sworn officer?
So primarily respond to basic criminal investigations as well as traffic crashes. missing persons reports, lost property reports, basic thefts, and then for traffic crashes, with injuries, without injuries. And then actually I was able to get my traffic homicide certification. So any traffic crashes that responded into serious bodily injury or death, I was fine with as well.
And can you tell us about your training experience within the 6 years that you've been a sworn officer?
So 6 years, basic law enforcement, police academy, several classes including field training officer or training officers as they get hired, continued my traffic homicide investigation courses, fraud investigation, injury and death investigation, case preparation, a number of certifications that I have for professional development classes, as well as my 4-year bachelor's degree in criminal justice from FIU.
Okay. And back on October 26th of 2018, you were employed as a police officer, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And as part of your duties as a police officer, do you often conduct detail or work details?
Yes. So as a police officer, I'm allowed to work off-duty security details at various locations in the city. So if a business is having an increase in burglaries, for example, they'll pay for an officer to sit in the parking lot to prevent and deter crime. At the hospital, we're preventing services in the lobbies, newborn abductions, for example, anything that would occur at these kind of soft targets. There is one officer stand by to prevent things from happening, and then obviously anything that was transpired, call for additional resources to assist them.
And so back on October 26th of 2018, where were you working in detail?
Memorial Hospital, Miramar.
And where's that hospital located?
The emergency room is at 1901 Southwest 172nd Ave.
Okay, and what city and county is that in?
City of Miramar, County of Broward.
And are you generally familiar with the area of the hospital?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you kind of give us a brief geography of the area, the main intersections and the highways?
So the hospital sits on the corner of 172nd Avenue and Pembroke Road on the southeast corner. We border with Pines on the north side. So that'd be, and the ER faces Pembroke Road.
All right. And where are you sitting or where are you working when you're working your detail inside the emergency room?
So as soon as you pull into the emergency room, I'm right there at the security desk. There's 2 entrances or 2 doors, but it goes with the same vestibule. There's one side for the pediatrics and one side for the adults. So as soon as you walk into either door, I'm sitting there right in the middle at the security desk.
Okay. And so on October 26th of 2018, while you were working your shift, do you recall a time where a black male approached you?
Yes.
Can you describe for the jury his general demeanor?
So I'm sitting at the ER desk, and he comes running inside to my left, so the pediatric entrance, and he's very excited, like heightened state of alert, something traumatic or something just happened. And he's like, hey, they just shot my car, they just shot my friends, like I need help, come help me. And that was the initial interaction. And
based on his statement, how do you proceed?
So as soon as I walk out the ER and I see the vehicle that had multiple bullet holes on the side, I immediately radio in for additional resources because that's beyond my scope of I can handle by myself. And then asking, hey, I need additional officers as soon as possible, urgently, to respond to the hospital. I have a vehicle that's been involved in the shooting. I can see the multiple bullet holes. And then looking inside the vehicle, I can see 2 responsive males. So I advise I have possible dead persons as well.
Okay. So let's break that down. You're sitting at the security desk inside the ER. This male approaches you, and based on that contact, you exit the ER,
yes.
Correct? Where was that vehicle that you just described located?
So imagine I'm sitting at the desk as this, and there's door here. So he comes to this door on the left. As soon as I walk out that same door he came through, the vehicle's parked in the drive-through lane, and I can see the right side of the vehicle.
Okay, so it was immediately apparent upon you exiting the ER?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and what type of vehicle was this?
It was a blue Jeep SUV.
Okay, and you said that the vehicle was riddled with bullets, if that was your statement.
We had several bullet holes on the right side.
Okay, on the right side of the vehicle.
Yes, ma'am.
And you mentioned that there were some individuals inside. How many people occupied the vehicle at the time when you saw it?
One gentleman in the front passenger seat and one in the rear right passenger seat.
And when you approached the vehicle, was it apparent their condition?
Yes, they weren't moving.
Okay. How so were you able to, I guess, determine whether or not they were injured?
So immediately looking on the vehicle and, just the fact that there was multiple bullet holes inside, they weren't moving, if somebody was able for me to help them, they'd be in obvious pain, screaming, moaning, and there's nothing.
Did you attempt to render aid?
Yes, so I immediately, after waiting in for assistance and letting the security guard at the desk, hey, I need doctors and nurses and everything to come out to help me, put on gloves and reached inside the front passenger seat and checked the pulse of the gentleman, the right wrist. I didn't find anything.
Okay. Upon you doing that, you mentioned that you already called. Did you call for assistance for law enforcement from Miramar Police Department?
Yes, immediately.
And then, besides your attempt to render aid, did medical personnel eventually come out and attempt to assist the victims?
Yes, no, definitely.
Were you present for that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and were you present when they took the victims inside?
Yes, ma'am.
Ultimately? And where was the black male subject that initially approached you at this point?
So right as soon as you walk it, we park the vehicle, there's like a decent sized sidewalk area for people to, I guess, pick which either door they want to go in. There's also a park bench. So while talking to him and trying to radio in and get information where this could have occurred, suspect information, where I need, other additional resources to go, he's standing next to me in that area, and then at one point I just have him sit down because he's just so, all over the place.
Did he ultimately identify himself to you?
Yes, ma'am.
And what was the name that he provided?
I believe it's Cortland Henry.
Okay. And did he tell you where the circumstances surrounding how he ended up at the hospital?
So he advised he just left the studio with his friends in Fort Lauderdale, and that he wasn't familiar with the area, but he had just gotten off a highway because they're staying at a home somewhere near the hospital. After he got off the highway, he was stopped at a light, and then the car, he couldn't tell me exactly what kind of car it was, just started shooting at his vehicle. So he multiple times reenacting the story, he's going like this, because he's saying that he had to duck down in the driver's seat as he was driving to avoid being hit.
And again, along those lines, you said that it was immediately apparent as to the other victims inside the vehicle. Were you able to observe any injuries to Cortland Henry?
No.
Were you able to observe any blood?
No. I actually told him several times that he was lucky because for that many bullet holes, I was surprised he didn't get hit.
And you had worked a detail at Miramar Hospital prior to October 26, 2018.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you generally familiar with their video surveillance system?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you had a chance prior to today to review the video surveillance?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, permission to approach?
You may.
I'm showing opposing counsel what's been pre-marked as States A for identification. Officer, do you recognize this?
Yes, ma'am.
How do you recognize it?
My initials are on the top there.
And is it a fair and accurate depiction of the events that occurred back on October 26th of 2018?
Yes, ma'am.
Any alterations or deletions based on your memory?
No, ma'am.
Your Honor, at this time, the state moves into evidence what was pre-marked as States A as States 1.
Any objection?
No objection.
Thank you. It'll be